Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is Carmina, reader with astrology, cards of truth, and lately human design as well. So today we are going to look at the chart of a famous person and see how his life, his personality, some events of his life were reflected in the cards of truth, in astrology, and in human design. So this person is somebody that's no longer with us, but his legacy is very much of an impact in people's life. This person is called Louis Braille, or as you know, English speaking people pronounce it Braille, because he invented the writing system. He invented it 200 years ago and it remains virtually unchanged. So he had a very fascinating life, and let's explore that a little bit with the help of his birth chart. I'm going to be using South Indian type of chart, but I use tropical signs, just like Western astrology. Just the setting and the principles used are from Vedic astrology, which is the ancestor of Western astrology, of course. He was born in a very small town in France, and he had three elder siblings. They lived with their parents. His father was working with leather. Very early on in his childhood, little Louis liked to play in his father's workshop. But one day when he was 3 years old, he tried to craft something, and with one of the sharp tools for handling leather, he really injured one of his eyes. And if you look in his birth chart, you see that Mars in the 12th house is one of the combinations that can show an affliction to the eye, and more specifically the left eye. They tried to fix his eye, but unfortunately, the infection that he had after his injury spread to the right eye, and by 5, he was completely blind. And there's also a combination that says Saturn in the 2nd house affects the right eye. And he has that, as you can see in his chart. There are also some combinations that show some injuries to the body. For instance, the moon influenced by Mars makes one prone to injuries. And we see here we are using Rashi aspect. So the moon here is in Leo, and it's Rashi aspected by Mars in Libra. So we're not using planetary aspects, we're using Rashi aspects. And Rashi aspects are that cardinal signs aspect all other fixed signs except the one next to it. Libra aspect Aquarius, Taurus, and Leo, and not Scorpio. Fixed signs aspect all cardinal signs except the one next to it. So Scorpio aspects, for instance, Capricorn, Aries, and Cancer, but not Libra. And dual signs all aspect each other. So Sagittarius aspects Pisces, Gemini, and Virgo, and vice versa. Mars influences the 4th sign from the ascendant, which is Aquarius, and that again makes one prone to injuries. And Mars in the 12th indicates wounds on the body. And if the ascendant lord is Saturn or Mars, and because it's Scorpio, the ascendant lord is Mars. And if the ascendant is joined by a malefic, and we see here the north node, then the person will be wounded in the head. So yes, because the person was wounded, of course, in the eye, and the eyes are on the head, we see these combinations playing out in his chart. Let's see in his cards what happened at the age of 3. So the birth card of Braille is the Jack of Spades. That's a very tough birth card. It's a person who's like more of a loner, a person who has to overcome a lot of physical and psychological issues. He left home when he was 10. So at the age of three, if we look at his cards related to health, of course, we're going to look a lot at spades, and we see a lot of spades that year. We see the Eight of Spades as a natural year progression, and we see the Eight of Spades on the Neptune card. And the Eight of Spades can have two connotations. It can be the inner journey that one takes because it's related to the Chariot, or it can be feeling stuck, feeling trapped in a way because of some physical condition. It can be feeling in a coma. It makes sense that that is the age when his accident happened. If we look in his birth spread, we see that he has an Eight of Spades in his Venus card, with Mars, which is the significator for accidents, and with the South Node, which is something karmic. So this Eight of Spades in the Venus card can only be achieved after the person is not feeling victimized. And from what I read from his biography, he kind of grew up not very tormented by his condition. Like, he first didn't understand what was going on. He was asking his parents, why is it dark all the time? And his parents really, for that day and age, they really went out of their way to offer him special care and education, which was not really common for those times. So we can see here that he did not succumb to victimization. He was not stuck in the Seven of Spades, because we can only access the Eight of Spades after we make peace with the Seven of Spades. The Seven of Spades is like the tower, the falling tower in tarot, when there's some destruction, some disruption happening to the body. And for him, of course, for someone, becoming blind is a serious impairment. But somehow he managed to come to terms with it, and he managed to make the best of it, because he really was a very diligent student. Everybody was really admiring him, so they decided to send him off for higher education, and he got sent off to a blind person academy, which was highly uncommon in that day and age. So we're talking about the 1800s. He was alone in Paris. His parents were in the small town. He wanted to send them letters home. So he really wanted to learn how to read and write. And when he was about 10, like, all his peers and all his teachers, they were all really impressed by his diligence, by his courage, by the way he really wanted to learn. Also, if we look in his birth chart, he has the North Node here on the ascendant. So that means he has to work on his body, and he has to do it by himself, because he has the South Node in the 7th house in Taurus. So the 7th house in Taurus would be also like the family home, or working in a partnership, like relying on material comfort, because his parents were doing pretty well. They were not very rich, but they were okay. They were middle class. They had vineyards, so he could have very well relied on the safety of his home and just stay there with his very loving and caring parents. But he really went in his North Node journey. He really went into his North Node in Scorpio on the ascendant. So really doing things by himself, although he suffered from blindness in both eyes, and really working on that inner battle. This North Node in Scorpio is similar to the Eight of Spades that we saw earlier, because it's an inner exploration, an inner battle phase. We can also see that he has in the third from the ascendant, in the third sign, which is Capricorn, he has the Sun and Mercury, which is a very good combination for technical knowledge and for courage, for skill. And we can also see he has Venus in the fourth from the ascendant, and that's very, Venus or Moon in the fourth from the ascendant is a very good combination for gentleness, for serenity, for peace of mind, for being artistic as well. And we will later see he became a renowned organist, and he was called to play in churches all over France. And he was also a very devout Catholic. He was very spiritual. And Venus, of course, also is a very devotional planet there in the fourth house. His devotion really helped him with his serenity and his peace of mind. Let's look at the cards at the age of 10 when he left to attend one of the first schools in the world for blind children. You can see also in his chart that, he was materially well off in his childhood. The Six of Diamonds here. His parents really went out of their way to make him feel comfortable. So that is very obvious here. Okay, at the age of 10, we see another 8. So 8, of course, always relates to the North Node. And being brave enough to tackle these difficulties, unexplored territories. And for him, it was an 8 of Hearts ecliptic year. It's a year when he had to leave home, kind of separate from the love and caring of his parents. We also see that in the natural year sequence, he was running an Ace of Spades. So he was finding the deeper inner truth about himself. And let's not forget that the most important part of the Jack of Spades is the Ace of Spades, which is a very occult card, which allows the person to explore the deeper layers of inner truth. So we see here, we also see this King of Spades, which shows like overcoming a limitation, and it's related to the fourth cusp of home. So he left home, he left his parents behind. It was not easy, of course, because we see also these 10 planets. We see Pluto here, we see Saturn here, we see Mars, but we also see Venus, and it's in the Jupiter card. And the Jupiter card also relates to our higher purpose, our long-term, broader vision. So he overcame some limitations that helped him go on with his higher purpose. But his difficulty that year was the Two of Diamonds, like coming together with a skill, because during those times they didn't have proper system put in place for blind people. The patron of the academy was a person who was very well intentioned but was also very adamant about his way of teaching. So the way he was teaching blind people was just to give them normal letters in normal books, but they would be just more indented. So you would feel like the A, like this, the shape of the A. But this person who created this was not blind themselves, so they could not relate how a blind person perceives these letters. Like it's difficult for a blind person to perceive like the A, the B, the C. So it was very, very difficult. And the person, the patron of the school, was very adamant about it. So I guess for Louis, it was difficult for him to come together with his skill of reading and writing, because he really wanted to learn how to read and write. And also the supply was very limited, the supply of books, the academy, even those that were written like this, like you would feel like an indent for the letter. But he was very a skillful student, and he managed to know very well all the books that were already there. So at this age, he was already searching for something new. He was already thinking of new methods. Also, the books that they were having as children, they were very uncomfortable. They were very large and heavy. So of course we see why he was having this Pluto in the Two of Diamonds. It was very difficult for him to come together with this reading and writing skill, because Two of Diamonds can be, of course, one of the things is moving away from his family, like flying together with another land, coming together with another place to live. And also because it's connected to this Jupiter, it has to do with higher education also. And Pluto here really made it difficult for him, but it also helped him think of something to improve that system, to change that system. In 1821, so when he was only 12 years old, Louis learned a communication system devised by a French army captain. So this invention was something called night writing. So it was a code of dashes and dots impressed into thick paper. These impressions could only be interpreted by the fingers. That's why it's called night writing, because you don't need the sight to see them. This was a very complex code for military use, for coding, but this also inspired Louis to develop a system of his own for enabling people with a sight impairment to read. So although he was only 12, you can see that that year he was running a Jack of Clubs ecliptic. So this is something new, a new idea that comes into his life. Also in the Pluto card, like a new idea, a new inspiration. But it didn't really materialize that year. He had to really work hard on it. We also see it here, an Ace of Diamonds, something new and concrete that was happening there. And we also see again that Eight of Hearts that he had at 10. And we see this Four of Spades on the Venus card, and that's his Mars card. So it's interesting to see also in his chart that his south node is ruled by the same planet as Mars, so they have the same rulership conjunction. But then the north node is in the Mars card, so, and also with his ascendant and with his Uranus. So what makes him unique? And what made him unique was the independent thinking, the flying apart from the education he had and having his independent thought. So it's really interesting how Mars is really connected with both nodes. So Mars is such a pivotal planet for him. The Mars that caused his accident also gave him strength and courage to pursue his ideas and overcome obstacles. We see here that the Mars card is with the sixth cusp, with intelligently overcoming obstacles, and also with the fifth cusp of creativity, and with the first cusp of himself, his body, and his path. So it's really interesting how all this comes together. And of course, the North Node card is the Ace of Diamonds. So starting something new and concrete. And that year he was running his North Node card, starting something new and concrete, also with the North Node in it. I also have to say that he was a visionary. Like the system that he used, although it is being used right now after 200 years, was not really officially recognized in the time of his life. So I think that's also something really interesting. Okay, so let's move on further and see what else happened with the help of the cards. So by 1824, by the age of 15, he had mostly completed his system of writing for blind people. And we can see that at 15, he's running this Ace of Clubs, of new ideas. His ecliptic is the Six of Hearts, which is receiving a lot of love and feeling fulfilled emotionally. He's also running this nice Six of Spades. Well, of course, it's in the Jupiter card, but it works out because Jupiter is in a Seven of Clubs. So his maturity relied on him overcoming ideas that were no longer working. And he also has this interesting Two of Spades here with the 10th cusp. Two of Spades, of course, is also part of the Jack of Spades, and the Two of Spades card is coming together with something that you need physically, like coming together with a remedy. It's with the 10th cusp. So he came together with a remedy for people to be able to interpret writing. It has to do with the 10th cusp of his public image. So he did something important there for the collective. And we see here that he has a very nice 10 of hearts here in the Neptune card. And the Neptune card, of course, relates to the collective. We also see that he has this Three of Clubs, his Uranus card in his South Node card, and he also has his Sun card in the North Node card. So the kingdom he creates, this is like a very visionary, this is like a very spiritual teacher card, because he was very spiritual and he was also a teacher, to put it very like bluntly and simply. And he is someone that affected many generations to come, not just his own generation, because the Eight of Clubs is a fixed card. So it shows a long-term change. I think this is very important here. This sun card of his being repeated in the north node position, also here with Neptune of receiving a lot of love and support from the environment. The moon is also here getting over some limitations of the intellectual kind. It's a very interesting year for him, year 15, because he was so passionate about his music. He also wanted to ensure that the musical code would be used for learning an instrument. And if we remember, he has the Sun and Mercury in the third house. He has Venus in the fourth. Venus relates to artistic sensitivity, and the Sun and Mercury in the third would give him very good technical knowledge and also musical instrumental skills. In 1829, he published his first book about the system. 1829, let's see, that would be at age 20, which he published was not published in the Braille. It was published in the raised letter system, so the ancient letter system. So it was a bit of, a letdown. You can see his ecliptic there is the seven of spades, which is like, again, being faced with some sort of limitation. But again, another change here, because a very important change, because he has the King of Spades on the Venus card. So letting go of something that he thought was fulfilling. And it's also interesting that year he was running the Ace of clubs here, which is a new idea, a new project connected to this Venus of starting something new. Also, he was running this Jack of clubs, so many indications of his book coming out. Yes, this Jack of spades, as I was saying in the beginning, shows somebody who has a lot of challenges with their health, and also because of other combination in his chart, it makes one very sickly. So unfortunately, his ailments really became worse with time. And he was a very sick adult person as well. And another letdown was the fact that the system that he created was not taught in the institute during his lifetime. Braille unfortunately died at the age of 43. We're going to look at his cards when he died. You see, interestingly enough, he's running a Seven of Diamonds ecliptic card, and the Seven of Diamonds is the death card in tarot. That does not mean that everyone who's running the Seven of Diamonds ecliptic will die. Of course, you have to look at many factors, but it's a concrete ending that year for him. So he died here in his Jack of Diamonds card period. Okay, so what we are looking at right now is the human design chart of Louis Braille. As you can see, he is a manifesting generator. That means that his sacral energy is connected to the throat. And another thing that we can see here is that he is a 5-1 profile. That makes him the heretic investigator. And it's no coincidence, because we know that he's a heretic in the sense that he broke away from the traditional method of teaching blind people how to read and write. And he's, of course, an investigator, because he basically researched from his childhood. When we look at this chart, let's see what pops up to us. First of all, this very powerful gate, 3457 gate. This is the so-called channel of power. In I Ching, the 34 is the clashing of the thunder and the sky. So it shows the birth of something new, like a very powerful birth. It's like the power of the life force that comes into existence. And it's a very intuitively based life force, because 57 is a highly intuitive gate. This gate in the I Ching hexagrams is represented by the gentle wind. So it's a very intuitive and gentle influence that awaits for the right moment to manifest. So this channel in its entirety is a very, very important channel. The people who have this channel are deeply intuitive and they are very sensitive with hearing. Also, we can see here the 3420 channel, and this channel connects the sacrum to the throat. So this is the channel of charisma. This has the ability to manifest thoughts into deeds. Then we see here that his design earth is here in the gate 51, gate of shock. People who have this, they can have shocking experiences, or they can bring shocking experiences through the world. So these shocking experiences are initiating forces. They are motors for their life. For instance, Louis Braille, at the age of 3, when he drove that sharp object accidentally into his eye, that was a shock. And him becoming blind, of course, was the motor force for developing this system that people can benefit from for centuries. Yes, we can see that Louis Braille had this left angle cross of individualism, and this cross is formed by the gates 51, which we just mentioned, and which is the gate of shock, and the gate 57, which we also mentioned, and is the gate of intuition. A shock that brings about an intuition makes half of his left angle cross. And then we also see that he has gates 38 and 39. They both come from his root. So gate 38 is called the struggle gate because a person deals with a lot of struggles in their lives, and they also struggle to bring meaning to this difficulty in life. And we can see him that the sun is in his gate 38, so he shines because of this struggle. And that makes a lot of sense if we know about his life, like we discussed. And then gate 39 is also considered to be kind of the teacher gate because it's the person who pushes other people. So this brings about an energy to push themselves and push other people. And that's why it's called a teacher gate. The downside of this gate is that it can bring about frustration, that no one wants the creativity that they have to offer. So he had to struggle with this a lot in his life because, as we mentioned, he was not recognized fully for his visionary discovery, for his visionary invention during his lifetime. He also had the gate 9 of focus. This can bring about some obsessive behavior, so not being able to let go of an idea, but that is very good for an inventor, for a researcher to have. Then he has this gate 20. It's called the metamorphosis gate. It's a gate that is full of integrity. It's all about doing the right thing, even if it's not what the others are doing. So this is connected to martyr. Yes, because this gate 20 also has the third here. So the third manifestation of the gate 20. So he's kind of a martyr. Again, this confirms the fact that he was doing what he thought he was right, although he was going against the norm. In the I Ching hexagrams, this represents waiting on a hill to see where, in which direction the wind goes. So this gate takes time to express. As we already know, it took quite a while from when he first thought of the system when he was about 12, until he wrote most of it when he was 15, and until he published his first book about it when he was 20. So it took about 7 years. We also see here, connected to the sacral, that gate 29 is activated, but this is kind of a sensitive gate, because here, if you have too much empathy and if you make too many commitments, if you take on too many burdens, which these people tend to do, it can wear them down pretty quickly. And really, he died very young. He died at 43. He was working really hard. He had a modest income, but he was helping his students. He was helping his students who were poor. He would also give them money. So he was a very charitable person. He also had the gate 37 of friendship there. He also had the gate 44 double, so we can see here that the north node is in the gate 44. This is the gate that enables a person to make things look good, to have kind of a promotional sense, to have kind of a salesman intuition that makes things look good. Then he has gate 48, which is depth. The downside to this gate is being afraid of never knowing enough. It's a gate that's very aesthetically oriented and very picky. It can be very aesthetically pretentious. Then he has the gate 49, which is a person that's a very stickler for rules. He has the channel 2838, which is very important in his makeup. Like we talked about courage, we saw it from an astrological perspective. We also see it from here. Gate 28 is the struggle gate, the struggle to discover meaning. And the only way to make this gate work is to embrace the struggle, which I think he did. He embraced the challenges in his life, and then he has the fighting spirit. So, and he also here has the lessons that he learned in surviving. He served as a model for other people, and in this gate he was a heretic, of course, because we see the fifth definition here in the 38. It was really fascinating to me to look at this person's legacy, because it's a person that it had such an amazing challenge to overcome, and he did not have an easy life. He always had health challenges, but he was so brave, and he was so methodical and so meticulous, and he managed to leave something for the world that the world uses hundreds of years later. And Braille, whatever you want to pronounce it, it's part of the vocabulary, and it's something that's very influential. So I hope you learned something from this video, and I'll see you again soon with more videos on the cards, on astrology, on human design. Talk to you soon. Bye.